Hi everyone, welcome to the November Creating Kindness Design Team Video Hop. I'm Lou Kitzelman and I live on the Sunshine Coast. You'll find all the information with the link to the blog post that goes with this video in the information below, and you'll also find the list of everyone who's participating in the blog hop, so make sure you hop from one to the other so that you can get lots of great ideas. Now, the theme for November is all about teamwork. And I found that a bit tricky to create a project for, but it got me thinking about what teamwork means to me. And I guess it means people, or in this case, things working together to work more efficiently and I guess in a way that is easier than if you're working individually. And so it got me thinking about the things that I use when I'm crafting, when I'm working by myself, and so I guess they're my creative team. So it's a bit of a tenuous link, but anyway, this is what teamwork in the craft world means to me when I'm working by myself. So what I wanted to do was make some tags like this using this great Dashing Deer stamp set by Stampin' Up, and I actually had a whole lot of little strips from the Joyous Noel Designer Series pack. So it's really beautiful paper and it's got these beautiful copper elements to it. And I find that when I'm cutting down the paper for my projects, I get all these little strips, and I'm always determined to use them. And when the paper's so pretty like this, you know, you really want to make sure that you use it to the full advantage. And so I've used it on my tag, but once I did the tag, I thought this would be great to mass produce, but not as tags, but as cards. And so what I've done is just taken the tag element and used it on the front of my cards, and so I've just got a few to show you. And as you know, at Christmas time it just seems to get crazier and crazier every year, and so I'm always looking at ways that I can easily mass produce or make lots of cards in a quick manner that that they still look really great. So what I was thinking about was that my Stamparatus is something that I will is really part of my team, and it's one of the best tools that I have. But it's not just for stamping. So it is perfect for positioning your stamps and getting perfect placement plus stamping, but it's for I use it for so much more, and so that's what I thought I'd show you about today. So I've just taken out the black foam mat because I'm using the red rubber stamps. I just use it if I'm using photopolymer. I'm also just using the grid paper that Stampin' Up has just released. It comes in a block like this, and you just rip off the pages. On one side it's got centimeters, and on the other side it's got inches, and it just depends which you work in. My plates for my Stamparatus are in centimeters, and so I've got the centimeters side showing up, and you can't really see it on here, or you just can. There's some grid lines on the plate and they actually line up perfectly with the grid paper, and I'll show you how I use the grid paper later on. But let's talk about, first of all, mass producing and stamping die cut images. So this particular little deer is really beautiful. It's one of the distinctive stamps, and so it's got some deeply etched parts to it, and so you get this beautiful filigree. So I've only stamped it once, but because it's got this really deeply etched part to the stamp, you only get a little bit of color on that, and so it's really pretty. But it can be a little bit tricky and time consuming to line up the framelit on it because there's lots of bits to line up. So what I do is I stamp my image once, which I haven't got that sample, but so you stamp the image once on your cardstock and then take the time to perfectly line it up. And I've used a fairly big piece. Take the time to line it up and then go and die cut that. Okay, and so when you die cut it, you'll have it perfectly cut all the way around the outside of it. But don't move your stamp. So I popped the cardstock in, I positioned my stamp where I wanted it, I stamped my image and then die cut it. And so now I'm going to use that as my template. So rather than having to really carefully line up the die or the framelit every time I want to cut out my stamped deer, I'm going to do it in the reverse. So what I've done was I've die cut a whole lot of deer just in white. So I've popped the cardstock exactly back where it was when I first did my first one, and I've left the stamp where it is. And every time I want to stamp the deer, I'm just going to place the blanks in there, and then I'm just going to stamp. So I'll just put, that's just a clear stamp box with my chamois in it. I'll just pop that underneath there so that it gives it a bit of a good foundation for me stamping. I'm just going to stamp my deer with Merry Merlot, which is a colour that I've fallen in love with, and I'm just going to stamp it just like that. And there you go, perfectly stamped every time. And I'm just going to bring in one of my other tools. My take your pick tool is perfect for lifting these out. So there we go, I've got a perfectly stamped deer. And so as you can see, I can just keep putting in all my blanks and stamping away, and so you really can get lots done. And if you wanted to change the colour, then you just take your stamping chamois is the easiest, because you don't want to move that stamp because you've taken all the trouble to get it. Sorry, that's my squeaky chair. You've taken all the trouble to line that up, so you don't want to move that. Okay, and I'd say this little deer is going to stay here for a while until I've finished my stamp, my Christmas stamping. I'll just close that. And oh, what a creaky chair. Okay, so that's the deer. And I'm just going to move my magnets and move my blank away. Oh, there we go, and I've just got ink everywhere. Oh, that's the perils of doing things quickly and trying to be succinct. Okay, let's just have a look at the next lot of stamping, where I want to do the sentiment for my stamp. So I'm just going to use a bit of, this is just 3 centimeters, it's just thick Whisper White, and I'm using it as a spacer, because if I were to stamp my sentiment right up the top, right up here, it's a bit hard to get a really good impression because the stamp is right against there. So I've just cut a piece of this thick Whisper White, and then I can just use my scraps of cardstock and butt it up against that. But before I do that, I just want to stamp my sentiment. I just want to make sure that it's still straight. So if I just stamp it on my scrap paper, and you can see that it's perfectly lined up and parallel with those. Now this is just scraps, so when I've been cutting down my cardstock, I just keep all of these scraps. I'm just going to pop that in over there because it's going to get trimmed down, so it doesn't need to be perfectly centered, but it does have to be flush so that it's straight. So we'll just stamp that. And once again, you can change the colors, you can stamp as many as you need. All these little tips and tricks really help, particularly when you're mass producing. And so if you were doing wedding invitations or something, or birthday invitations, or something where you need a lot, then something like the Stamparatus just really is perfect to be part of your team. I don't know if you can hear that meowing, that's my cat Millie. She's just come in. She likes to bring me toys. Hi Mel. So if you can hear that crunching, that's the toy. Thank you, darling. You're very kind to me. Okay, so that's my stamping. I've got that stamped. Okay, let's have a look at how I position my how I put together my tags using my Stamparatus. So I've got my grid paper here, and I've cut a piece of Whisper White 6 centimeters by 9 centimeters, and I've just marked in here the 6 centimeters. You can see the little orange marks there. I'm just going to pop that on there, and that's how I'm going to use this. And the grid lines help you line up things perfectly straight and perpendicular. Okay, so here's my strip of cards, my designer series paper, and I'm just going to pop it along there, and I think actually I'm just going to center it like that. Is that how I want it to go? Okay, all right, so we're going to have that at the bottom, so I'm just going to use my tool. I'm just going to pop that on there, okay, just like that, and then I'm just going to get my copper, and these are all just scraps, and I'm just going to put some tape, some Terran tape about 6 centimeters long, just like this. And so really I'm using the magnets as a second pair of hands. Oops. Alright, so I'm just going to put this on where I want it, and I'm just using the grid lines to help me keep that all straight. Okay, and I'm just going to just pop just in a drawer that's just off camera and just cut this to 6 centimeters. Just like that. Okay, all right, so now I've got my 6 centimeter bit, and I'm just going to pop it in there, and I'm keeping it straight on within my guidelines, and I'm just going to use the magnet, like I said, as my second pair of hands without moving it. Sorry, that was a bit clumsy. There we go. All right, so now what I would like is some Merry Merlot. I just want to see a little strip of Merry Merlot. So I'm just going to put a bit of tape on the back of that. And this just happens to be cut at 6 centimeters because I had it cut off something else. And because it's an offcut, I'm not really worried about how wide it is because it'll be on the back. So I'm just using the grid lines on my paper to line it up. And I'm making sure that it's perfectly aligned. And because I've got the magnet on the bottom bit, it's holding it in place for me. So there we go. And now we're going to put some tape on that and add the top layer. And so I have my hands free to get it straight. I don't have to worry about holding the bottom bit. So I'm just working out how much I want to see of the bottom, and then I'm just lining it up with the grid lines on that side. And then I have a perfectly lined up and perfectly straight panel, just like that. Oops, and stuck down. So it's just a really great way to use your stamp apparatus to its full advantage. Okay, so I've just got that. And I'm just going to hold it down with the magnet so that it's stable and in place, and let's pop this on. So I would pop that on with Stampin' Dimensionals, and then I've got my sentiment that I would add some copper to, and then trim it off just like this. So pop that on, okay. And then I just wanted to also show you how you can use the Stamparatus to tie bows. So I've used it for lining up, I've used it for mass producing, and I've also used it to tie bows. But I am very wary of the time. Now the Stamparatus is great because it's got open sides. so that, sorry, open sides on there, so that you can have longer bits coming out. And so I'm just going to put the magnet on there to hold that in place. And then I'll just put this where I want that to go. Now, some ribbon that you use, particularly the things like the linen twine, or sometimes this ribbon, it's hard to keep the knot in place while you're tying the bow. And if you don't have that second pair of hands, I've got a neat little trick to show you. So I'll just pop this underneath, just like that, and I just want to sort of position it where I want it to go. So I've got it flush against the bottom, so I can use my grid paper to work out where it's got to go, and we'll just pop another magnet on there. Okay, so I need a bit more out. Alright, so I'll pop a bit of tape underneath where I know that panel is going to go. Okay, now I know I need the bow to be around here, so let's just grab my glue dots because I need those. So I'll get those ready. Okay, so, oh no, sorry, I don't need my glue dots. I don't know what I'm talking about. Tie my knot. Okay, now you can see that it's a bit hard to keep it nice and tight, and normally you'd get, if someone was home, I'd say, can you pop your finger there, but I'm home by myself, so I'll get my magnet and I'm just going to pop it on the corner there, just like that, so it's holding it. See, better than someone's finger. Hopefully you can see that, and then you can tie the bow if you're not doing it quickly, so that the video is not going on forever. There we go. And then you just take your magnet out. So hopefully I've shown you some other ways that you can use your tools in your stamping, and they can be part of your creative teamwork, and then you can put them together to make lovely cards like this. So make sure you check out my blog, With a Bow on Top by Lou, and you can find, like I said, find the link in the bottom with all the information of this video, and so that you can check out all the more information that goes with this and what the rest of the design team have been up to. Thanks everybody, bye.